Hello and welcome to our channel MarshStream, your public performance broadcast platform. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. You can also donate to our tip jar and support the arts and artists of MarshStream by clicking the link below in the description. Check out our website at themarsh.org for all upcoming live performances. Now enjoy the show.
Tonight, I'm thrilled to welcome Giovanni Rodriguez and our new partnership with Remote Studios, as well as Obie winning playwright Caridad Svich. First, let me give you a bio of Giovanni. He's a writer, a director, a producer, and communication strategist across different media, and founder of the Silicon Valley Story Lab, a media strategy consulting firm. Past and present clients include Nike, Google, Intel, Microsoft, and the Obama White House. He is the founder of the Remote Theater Company, a project born during the pandemic to advance the art of an emerging communications medium we call live cinema. Let me also introduce Caridad Svich, playwright of the Book of Magdalene. She's a playwright, a text builder, theater maker, translator, lyricist, editor, and educator. She received a 2012 Obie Award for Lifetime Achievement in the Theater, a 2012 Egerton Foundation New Play Award, the 2011 American Theater Critics Association's Primus Prize for her play, The House of Spirits, and so much more. She has won the National Latino Playwriting Award twice. Her works in English and Spanish have been seen at venues across the US and abroad. Welcome, 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 Giovanni and Caridad. How are you tonight?
Doing great. Thanks for having me and Caridad tonight.
Great, lovely. Thank you so much. Lovely to be here. Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you, thank you. Let's start a little bit with Giovanni, because I want to hear some more about Giovanni and Remote Studios. Tell us, what inspired you to start this new venture?
Well, unfortunately, I have to tell you a story that I hope just takes like a half a minute, but it could be 3. I'll be very careful about it. But I was very, very sick. In 2019, I was hospitalized, for several months, and I almost didn't make it. And it was during that time that I realized something in my life had gone wrong. And if I made it through, that I would get back into things that mattered to me artistically. I had left the theater in the 90s and, came back during the pandemic. And so Remote was born with 2 things. It was, I woke up one morning saying, I want to produce a play that I've been wanting to produce since the 90s called One Flea Spare by Naomi Wallace. And the question was, this is April, 2020, how do you do that? And so very quickly I realized, no, it's probably going to be a Zoom thing, and I did some research and there were not a lot of people doing it yet, but, we quickly did it. And actually, that's my connection to Caridad, because Naomi Wallace knows Caridad and she recommended me. I recommended her, recommended each other. And so I asked to read her plays, and I really liked the one called Book of Magdalene.
So that's about this play, but tell us more about Remote. Like, what have you been doing? What's your, your hopes, your dreams?
Yeah, well, the overall mission is we think we can be part of a movement that will not just restore theater, because I'm not even sure what that means. Theater audience has been waiting for a very long time. But we think there's this point in history that can't be ignored, where the models that were used in the past that were largely based on physical space, could be challenged, at their core. And Remote wants to be in the business of helping theaters to transform to what we're calling a post-digital age. It's not just Zoom. It's, let's say you have an incredibly expensive production of a play that could have a much, much longer life and a much, much larger audience because it was also digital. And that's the business that we want to be in. We've been working in 2 modes, full productions of plays that we love, and a lot of readings. And the readings we take very seriously. They're a lot of fun, but it's amazing how much you can learn in just having a couple of rehearsals and then doing it. And that is what Remote is doing. We've done about 7 of these so far.
What have you done so far? Or what's your favorites? Or maybe you can't say who
Favorite? No way.
Oh,
no, I will say like I can't say it's always the current project, right? They're carried out, but it's not. If I had to say what was a special moment, kind of like, oh, it was actually Naomi's play. This is a play about the plague, One Flea Spare, and it was really perfect for the time. I remember like relatives of mine, or maybe just one, said, how could you do this? You do a play about the plague. It says, what's with you? It says, but haven't you ever like gone through like a really hard story and then come out better? And yeah, that argument prevailed, really. People took it. They wanted something that gritty and also just poetic, just so beautiful. The language is soaring.
Well, then let's talk about Caridad and why you chose her play, and tell us a little bit, and then we'll talk to Caridad about it. The real reason, the
Okay.
ultimate
I feel like
reason.
it's kind of like the dating game, I guess, right?
Absolutely.
Right. I'm bachelor number 1. So yeah, I think the one thing I can tell you, I have to skim a lot of plays. That's just the reality for any producer, that's interested in doing new work. There will be a lot of scripts that you don't even know what they're about, and so Caridad, I think first an intro makes a lot of sense, because I know Naomi, we've spoken several times over Zoom, so I, trust her. And so when she says, look at something, I'm going to take it very seriously. And I just sorted through. I don't remember how many you sent. Then I also did some research on Caridad. And I thought, this is the one I think we should do. This is just, it moves me, and we'll be talking about the subject matter, but what I'll share with you, just for foreshadowing it, is that I was a religion major in college, and not to study theology or become a priest or anything, or rabbi. It was actually to fill a hole in my heart that was there after I left the Catholic Church. And I said, oh man, I got to do this. This is something I got to do. So,
I mean, like the Book of Magdalene, right?
The Book of Magdalene, yeah.
So, Caridad, tell us about your play. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your play. Start with your play. No, start with yourself. Start with yourself.
Let me pick things. Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks, Gio. And thanks to all the people that are here watching as well on various platforms. Myself, I am a playwright. I'm a theater maker. You've got a little bit of the bio. My background is Cuban, Spanish, Argentine, and Croatian. I write in both Spanish and English. I also write lyrics in both languages. And my entryway to theater is no one in my family is in the arts. So my entry path was through reading, through the provocation and instigation of teachers who saw in my writing, my short stories and poetry, something theatrical. And I trusted my teachers, and, it's their fault that I'm doing this now still. And that process of initially encountering theater on the page made me very curious about the forms that it could take, the sort of expansiveness of the medium. And I think that's what hooked me, because often people ask me, what hooked you? And I'm like, what hooked me is that it felt like you could do so many things. It's such a, it involves all the elements: lighting, sound, text, sometimes no text, performers, many creatives, behind the scenes, and I loved that aspect of it, even if it was just a glimpse in my mind of what could be possible. In terms of the Book of Magdalene, it's interesting. It's a play that I started out writing as a short story, but not really thinking it would be a play, only because I wasn't sure what the container was. So I was taking a lot of notes, and I haven't written a short story in a long time. So it was like a really unusual thing that had happened to me as a writer. I was like, why am I writing a short story? Like, what is this? And I was just like taking lots of notes. I was interested in the character of Magdalene. I was listening to a lot of FKA Twigs at the time, so I wanted to respond to that album because it's so beautiful, and I felt like this urgency as an artist, just kind of respond. And sometimes other artists make you respond to something. So it started in that place, and I was interested in a kind of contemporary story that smashed into something ancient, which a lot of my writing does, but I hadn't done that for a while in my writing life. So it was kind of fun to kind of dip into those waters. Took some notes. Nothing came of them. I set it aside. Made a bunch of other things. And then at the top of lockdown last year, I had, oh my heavens, I had 8 shows cancel. 3 of them were premieres that I've been working on for like 5-6 years each. So I suddenly felt like, my ground is kind of like, what am I doing? What's happening in the world? As many people have. And another part of me as an artist was feeling like, oh, well, now I can just write whatever I want, because clearly it doesn't matter anymore what happens. And so weirdly enough, I was finishing up 2 commissions that I needed to turn in a deadline for, and then I was writing a comedy, and then as I was writing the comedy, the figure of Magdalene sort of reappeared in my mind, and I was like, and I could just see the entire play in my head. That doesn't always happen in my writing process. So when that happens, I trust it. I just like, what? I'm seeing the whole play in my head, like before I've put down a word, and so I was like, oh, I've got to write it now. And so I finished the comedy, which I was having fun with, and that's all good. And then I just dove straight into writing this play. And I was like kind of cave-like mode anyway. And so I just wrote in my little writing cave, and the play sort of materialized very quickly. I felt like I was, sometimes writers talk about this act of transcribing, where you feel like the characters are just sort of speaking. This is what this felt like. They were speaking, I was transcribing. Every day I faced my computer, they kept, surprising me, and I just kept chasing the story down till the end. I had some formal considerations as I was writing, so I put some things in my ingredients box as a writer. One of them was that I wanted the play to be set at night. I also wanted an insect to appear at some point, but I didn't know what kind of insect. And I wanted something that dealt with faith and grace and spirituality, or the attempt to have a spiritual life and a reconnection with the natural world. So those concerns were sort of hovering. So yeah, that's a little bit about the play. I don't want to hog up all the time because I know we have other questions. So yeah, but that gives you a little bit of a sliver of the process and a little bit about me.
Well, before we move on, tell me, who are the characters in your play?
Who are they? Good question. So Magdalene is the lead, and we see the play from their point of view, very much almost as if they were, no pun intended, writing a book. And then there's how to describe Rue. Rue is a former flame. Maybe sometime, maybe they'll get back together again. They're a friend. They're the beloved in the story. And then there's Elder, who is Magdalene's elder. So maybe familial bloodline, or maybe not. but someone that they care for and are, on a daily basis. They're elderly and they're caring for them. And then there's a Suit, who is one of Magdalene's clients. Magdalene works a phone sex line. And then there's a mysterious character that I can't talk about because they're a surprise. And so I won't say who they are, but they appear. They're sort of a vision, and they're kind of like a double vision of a character that appears that changes the course of the story a little bit. Have I forgotten anyone, Gio? Did I get them all? Oh, there's a priest. I haven't. The priest.
sorry.
You know why I forgot the priest?
They're not going to be in trouble.
I forget the priest all the time because they're sort of in the back of my head. But yes, there's a priest character that Magdalene visits, who runs a church that nobody goes to, basically. So Magdalene is one of the few parishioners.
Well, speaking of these characters, Gio, who have you got to play them?
Oh, well, we always try to work with the very best people we know for the parts, that we have. And Dina Martinez is somebody that I met, back in the 90s when I first did theater, but never got a chance to work with before. But this summer we're doing two things, not only Magdalene, but she's also directing our co-production with Cal Shakes of El Henry, which is a Hispanic retelling of Henry IV Part 1. And it's quite wonderful. And Dina will be doing that. We also have Leontine Bong. She is playing the character of Rue, who we're thinking of as a former partner of Len. For Elder, we have Joy Carlin. I think, Stephanie, you have, like, practically everyone in the theater community knows Joy, either one degree or two, for many decades. And it's really such a great fun. I mean, I never got to work with her either. So this is, big thing for me. We have Tanya Schaefer, who's co-founder of Remote. She's playing two parts. One part is silent, is a cicada. The other part is the part of the reveler, a wild busmate, as you'll see in a play if you tune in on Saturday. And for the men, we have Brady Morales Woolery. Brady is a member of our company as well, and really, so thrilled to be working with him again. We did a reading of Lynn Kaufman's reading play with Brady. And we have Tim Redmond, somebody that I've met through Jim Carpenter's group, the Actors Reading Collective. Tim is like one of the most solid members there. These folks meet every Thursday and they read a play. And they've been doing this for more than a year. And it's really remarkable. At the time, they thought, we can't let our acting muscles atrophy. Oh, these guys are like gymnasts right now. They kept their chops going and they're not stopping. So yeah, I hope I didn't leave anyone out. I should put a list in front of me.
Well, it's quite a wonderful list of people. And that brings me to
one last thing. We have, I was just going to say, we have Rindy Eckert, who's contributing some music also. And unfortunately, we were not able to get a version that you could play today.
Yes.
So sorry about that.
Next time. Well, this is not so much character, Caridad, but I am interested to know, why did you want an insect in your play?
I like giving myself challenges as a writer, and when I set out the ingredients for what I might have in a play that I'm working on, I like to throw in something that A, I haven't done before, B, that seems a little bit impossible, and and see maybe something that you don't normally see on stage. And so, you know, I've never had an insect in any of my plays. So I was like, well, this might be fun. I had no idea how that was going to manifest. I just thought it'd be like a cool thing. And I was also thinking a lot about, because thematically, a strand of the play is about people that are disconnected from the natural world and trying to forge a reconnection to the natural world. I thought, well, an insect can be that bridge. And also, I wanted something that was not. In my other plays, I've had a lot of like foxes and cats, and I've never had a dog, but I've never had. Not yet. One day I will. But I've never had an insect. And I thought, oh, you know, I'm ignoring the insect universe. I can't do that. So that was one of the reasons. You know, very whimsical reason. But I also trust my hunches as a writer, and I think that, you know, when I decided it was going to be a cicada, then that opened up a whole you know, universe of meaning. I didn't you know, how was I to know that suddenly we were going to have, after 17 years, cicadas everywhere right now. They've come back. But I was originally thinking about them as figures that express a kind of, how shall I put it, a way of bridging universes, and also they're a life force, but sometimes people are scared of them, and so I was interested in that idea of like something that looks very menacing, but actually they're very positive for the world. So that felt like a natural fit, and once that sort of manifested in the writing, I started to play with that idea. I also wanted something in the play that would lift it into another realm that was like not necessarily, mimetic realism. I wanted something that would lift it. And I thought, well, this might be a fun way to do it. And allow kind of a different sphere to enter the play, and also guide the audience into a different kind of way of seeing the way these characters are behaving, and what their dream life is like, and maybe what the real world is doing too.
So you chose the cicada. Is it circada or cicada?
It's cicada.
Cicada. You chose
cicada.
So did you look like at a whole range of insects to come up with it? How did you come up with the cicada? And tell us a little bit about, you mentioned every 17 years, and this is it, right?
We're in it now, right? So I mean, I didn't spend a long time, browsing, Google for insects. I mean, I was interested in the shape of the cicada, and they're unusual, and also that they make a sound, right? So I thought, okay, I'll play with the sound of that, and I knew that the play would live. I'm very attuned to sound as a writer. And as a poet, so I wanted some of their sounds in the play, and then it was just a matter of, like, when I saw the pictures of them, that I've never seen one in real life. I was like, oh, I mean, I find them to be beautiful. I know some people find them to be very ugly, but I actually think they're beautiful. So I was like, oh, they're awesome, and I want to see that. Like, I want to see how you put that on stage. And so so it became sort of a way in for me. But it's only one scene, and that scene starts to create a different journey in the play for the characters, so that allows other things to happen. So I knew I also wanted something that would instigate change in the play, and something that would come from the world outside the characters rather than inside of them. In this case, so that was the main decision around the inclusion of Cicada, and then the fact that they're an unusual phenomenon in the natural world in terms of their rise, and I wanted to. I think this is a play about, in part, about breaking cycles. And so I felt like it would be really cool to have an element of it from the natural world that is also about kind of like, we're probably entering a new cycle, we're back. So I thought that would be a subterranean, I think, way of doing that. Because I think an audience experiencing the play, perhaps, in the moment are not like as aware. And I will say that when I wrote it, I didn't know that they were going to come back. So it kind of took me by surprise. We were doing the show in Houston where it premiered at Main Street Theater in February. And it was suddenly like cicadas in the news everywhere. And we're like, what just happened? Wait a minute, we have one in our show. What's going on? So it also felt like a sign from the universe, mysterious. And I thought, okay, maybe the cicadas are blessing the play in some way. The real ones are blessing the non-real one in the world of my play. So I thought that would be fun.
I mean, I don't want to focus too much on insects, but I mean, we are at the marsh and the MarshStream, and where else should there be insects? And I have to say, ever since, we talked a couple of days ago, I went outside, and for the first time in Oakland, which is very different than where I grew up in upstate New York, I heard what sounded like a cricket. Now, maybe it's a cicada. Is that possible? Do they live in the East Bay? No. No?
So,
no. Well, maybe it's a cricket.
Well, yeah, crickets for sure. We got so many here too in Santa Clara. But the cicadas is mostly East Coast, South, right, Caridad?
And the Midwest. There's a bunch of
Midwest. Yeah.
Indiana right now is overrun with cicadas.
Yeah, and Tanya,
as my friend tells me. Yeah.
Yeah, Tanya Schaefer, our co-founder, she's in Michigan, and they have them. Yeah.
All right. So one more question on this. I mean, just going from this thing, you said, do playwrights come up with a list of ingredients for their play, or is this something that you all talk about, or is this something you internally do, or what?
Yeah, some playwrights do. It's not an uncommon strategy. I think that, not just playwrights, but novelists and, other people who write things do this. The short answer is sort of the version of like Top Chef, where it's like, you have stuff in your basket and you got to make something from it, right? So, which I think is one way of making art, even experientially, is like, okay, what's in the basket? What do I have in front of me? Or what can I put in there? And what combinations of things might be interesting? So I think that sometimes the combinations of things appear to you from someone else, like when I get a commission sometimes, and it's from existing material, for example, or the parameters are set by the producer. Those are ingredients, right? When I'm self-generating material, it's one way for me to kind of keep it playful and keep it alive. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a playground. So I just want to make sure that the playground is fertile, it's active, there's enough there for me to draw upon as a writer. And I can also see if there are interesting, compelling juxtapositions of elements. Because sometimes, including random ones, because I'm a big believer in chance and randomness in art making. So you'll have like a list of things, including sometimes characters or voices or music or whatever you're putting in that basket. And then it's like, oh, let me throw this one other thing. I don't know what it is yet. I don't know why it's there. I'm just going to put it in just to see what it does. And then as you're working, sometimes, it never makes it into the play. And then sometimes you're like, oh, this this moment and that thing that I put in randomly actually have great synergy. So being open to that in the writing process, especially in the generative stage, I think can be really exciting and powerful, and keep it keep it sort of fun. They call it play for a reason. It has to be fun, or else why do it?
Exactly. And why do it, Giovanni? I mean, Caridads play is, as I understand it, a pandemic play. Remote. It's not
Yeah,
about the pandemic, but
not
it
about
happened within the confines of the pandemic.
yeah.
And it was performed already in Texas, correct? Texas, right?
Yes.
Yeah, in Houston. Yeah, Main Street Theater in Houston.
It had its premiere, and that was a digital premiere.
It was a full production shot on stage, but there was some digital manipulation. But so it was a film, so it wasn't a live stream.
And remote also, this aspect of it comes out of the pandemic as well, Giovanni, correct?
Yeah, well, I think, when I said, we first, of course, take scripts seriously to come from friends. But then, what I saw in this play was something that spoke to me, personally. So I'm an artistic director, so, it's like if I have a moment like that, it's pretty instant. It's like first love, it's like, and what you want to do it. And so the pandemic aspect is, I've always liked the concept of post-apocalyptic. Actually, one of my favorite shows that I've seen recently, and it was a high school production, was the Simpsons Mr. Burns play. I don't know if you've ever seen that or heard of it, but it was this post-apocalyptic play where people are struggling to remember, what the greatest myths were in our society, but they do memorize the Simpsons episodes so they can tell them for future generations. And it's like, it's wonderful, wonderful. And, the third act of the play is like commedia, type production of The Simpsons, an episode that they've been talking about through history. And it's just so mind blowing. But I just thought that the idea that it was framed as like, okay, something bad happened, right? Something really bad happened. And they examine it in detail in the first play, the Mr. Burns play. But the idea, though, post-apocalypse is, I think, looking at what would life be like without things that we had. What if we couldn't touch each other? What if, all these things. And that's a very interesting thing. It forces you to think about what matters. Forces you to think about, what life is worth living for. If you can do without so many different things,
Which has been a huge part of this pandemic.
That's right.
Doing, is it in an odd way, and probably not within a defined way, as we leave this shuttering, it's a little bit post that, right? Apocalyptic, right? Because so much has been different for so many of us during this time.
Yeah, there is
I'm not going to go for this definition. That's okay.
Yeah, so I hope everyone comes to see the reading on Saturday. The play ends on well, I'm not going to tell you how it ends, sorry, but it's a note of hope. I mean, that I will say. But it reminded me, again, going back to the first play, that we did, as remote, of Naomi Wallace's One Fleece Spare. This is a story told by a girl, a 12-year-old girl, who lives in a house where four adults are essentially sequestered together. They don't know each other. There's one couple that lives there and two people that break in. The girl is one of the break-ins, I'm sorry. But they, at the end of the play, there aren't very many people left, and she's out in the streets of London assessing what the world is like, and it's both good and bad. It's nice that she's out there in the open air, but she's also seeing all the suffering, everything that was laid waste, during this time. And I think we're going through that right now. I think this is what's happening right now, where we are going out and we are like with more sober eyes looking at, holy shit, that happened. The world is changing, so that is, I think, where we are collectively.
Yeah, I was thinking about it today. It's like, I like my little life now where I get done at 8:30 at night instead of 10 or 11, and I go to bed and I read a book and I wake up and I work
The
really.
book. Oh man.
I read the Kindle, if that makes sense.
Oh, that gets, yeah. Gets
And
the job done.
and then I get up and I work and I do it, and it's a very organized life. Still overwhelmingly busy, but very organized. But the Marsh and remote. The Marsh is so much about development, and remote. Caridad, your play has been done once, right? Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, it was done in February of this year.
And you started writing it in November or something? Is that something?
I wrote it in April of last year. It got picked up for production pretty quickly, which is rather unusual in this business. I sent it to the artistic director at Main Street Theater in Houston, where I had done a show before some years ago, and we've always stayed in touch. And I was asking her about something else, project-wise, and then I just said, "Oh, I have some work I'd like to show you, if you don't mind." And she was like, "I'm just sitting around. It's a pandemic." And I was like, okay. And so I sent her a couple of things. This was one of them. And she like literally, I don't think it's ever happened this fast for me, but it was about 2 weeks after I sent it to her, and she emailed me and was like, "I want to do this. Can we do this? Let's do this." And I was like, "You're kidding. You're kidding me. A, I can't believe it's happening so fast. And B, how are we going to do this during the pandemic?" But she had a plan, there's a wonderful director named Amelia Rico, who works there in Houston with them. And she said, "I think this is perfect for Amelia. And I can't wait to see like her brain on this material. Like, I just think there's something that we could make." And also they were like, Rebecca said, we have to do something. I felt she was feeling like, rudderless, and so we were pre-production in November, December, and then all the production and stuff happened in January. Pretty much some of it, well, mid-January, I should say, not the top of January, but mid-January of this year. And then really cutting it close into before we open, because, they were building sets and the costumes and puppets. And I mean, there was all sorts of stuff going on. An incredible team of designers and the actors. We initially rehearsed on Zoom, and then we moved into the physical space with it, COVID safe and following protocols and so forth. So, but in terms of actual like American theater production timelines, it was like really, really fast, unless you're doing it DIY on your own. So I was really shocked and surprised and heartened, and it gave me a lot of hope. And then weirdly enough, I had like 3 premieres in a row in February. So I suddenly was finding myself like, in the middle of 2 new shows, 1 area premiere, another play that sort of happened like in the middle of it, so a lot of activity in the middle of a pandemic, and a lot of new work. So part of it may be to do with people's desire to connect with audiences and to figure out ways of working and to sustain their artists, pay them, and to give them a challenging work to do. challenging for their spirit and their mind and their soul. And so all of that, but, I will say that if it weren't for Main Street Theater in Houston, I don't know what would have happened, because that was just it was so random that occurred, and I think, again, I think the cicadas have something to do with it. The mystery of the cicada, that they work their magic, so I might put more insects in my plays in future.
I suggest a dog.
I'll try that. I'll try a dog.
But also, I want to invite anyone in the audience to put some notes in the chat, questions if you'd like. Giovanni, back to the development part. So this has been done once, because when you say there were some other premieres, it was of other plays. And now you're having this play reading with remote. Mm-hmm. And does this fit into development in any way? Is it the same play that they did in Houston, or have you done anything in?
It's the same play. What we do with readings, if there are plays that have been produced before, is we look for ways to present the play so that it could be understood by other directors, and producers who may want to take it somewhere. So very recently, we did a play that was already pretty old. It was 2 decades, which is Donald Margulies's Dinner with Friends. And it was really quite beautiful. And it had been recently restaged in New York. Well, not recently, maybe about, I don't know, 7 years ago. But it's one of those things that if you keep going forward, you can do it again, and I was in touch with the playwright, and he gave me permission to mess with a few things in the timeline, to make it a little bit more relevant today. And so, giving thought, we'd like to put it out there. That wouldn't be a bad thing to bring back, so it could be a new work. It could be something that has only been produced once, like, Caridads play. We did a reading of The Welkin by Lucy Kirkwood, which is a gorgeous play that only had a production in London and was going to have an American premiere, but the pandemic came. And so that was a very similar thing. Just had a great production in London, and we did a reading here. It was like, we were so fortunate. We worked with some of the Bay Area's best actors, and there were like 12 women in the cast, and it was extraordinary. So with a reading, you can do a lot, but the big purpose is to get it in front of people so they consider full productions. They can actually hear it, and the playwright gets an opportunity to do that, because, one thing they generally do is send it to their closest theater friends. Yeah.
And of course, it's all on video and film, so it's sendable, outable.
Yeah, so if it's a living playwright, generally it's not that hard if their publishers are okay to have some kind of agreement on digital rights after the event, but that could be very, very tricky. But yeah, it can be something like that. I have one playwright that we did a reading for, and the agreement I have with the publisher is that anytime somebody wants to watch it, I ask. Because it's not that frequent. But it could be a very important person. It could be somebody that wants to produce it, right? And of course, not going to say no, the publisher.
Right.
But, we are living in a different time, with things like that. And, equity has come a long way. They were lost in the beginning. SAG has come a long way. But still, almost every situation presents challenges when you're thinking of producing something right now.
Caridad, are you excited about this reading? Are you participating in any way? Tell me if you are, if you're not, if you are, why, if not, why not? Can you talk
all the
questions? I'm happy to respond. I think that, one thing is that when a play premieres, the journey isn't over. Do you know what I mean? I think writers are still discovering what the play is. You know, my work is very open, so depending on who the actors are in the room, it affects even the meaning of how the play is delivered, and how it feels in the room. So, you know, I'm eager to have new experiences with a work. I want to be surprised by new collaborators. So yeah, I was in rehearsal the other day. I met the cast. It was great fun. I've worked with Dina before. We did a show at Denver Center together. My version of The House of the Spirits, based on Isabel Allende's novel. And so you know, we go way back, but the other cast is new to me. But it was like really great fun because you hear different things, you know, because they're different people, thank God. And so, you know, new meanings arise and new ways of thinking about the play. So that's always thrilling for me, and yeah, it's you know, I'm looking forward to more playground time. I think there is a question on YouTube Live, but I can't see it, so I don't know if you can, Stephanie.
I will read it to you now.
Okay, cool, awesome. Yeah, I just saw it pop up, and I was like, oh, I think there's a question.
Janet T asks, Caridad, how different has it been seeing a play come to life on Zoom/digitally rather than traditionally as it was pre-pandemic? Does it feel the same?
Oh, what an interesting question. Well, given that the play was done during the pandemic, I don't have a pre-pandemic experience with it. So my experience with it has been completely virtual, even though we were shooting on stage in Houston. The experience of it for the audience was virtual, and so yeah, I'm actually, I wonder what a post-pandemic version of this would look like. Like, actually, I mean, that's my one big question mark. You know, like, oh, how do we do this? Like, you know, it's weird. You know, this may seem like completely nuts, but we did shoot it on stage. There was a set. There were costumes. There were all those things that happen, like sometimes happen in plays. But because we treated it like film, and to a certain degree, I'm kind of still waiting. I'm kind of still waiting for the, you know, what is the live version of this? So I'm super curious, but I'm also like a huge fan and proponent and collaborator in the digital realm. So and in fact, I think of ways where this piece could live, like in really provocative ways digitally, as full-on digital theater, and that's something I haven't experimented with yet with it, but I'd love to, if that opportunity arose as well. So yeah, so for me, it's I can't speak to the pre-pandemic experience with this piece. With other pieces, I can say that my writing tends to be heavily mediated anyway. It has been since around the year 2000. And my dramaturgy is very hyperlinked in what it's doing. So I think that
Caridad, can you define what you mean by those two things, mediated and hyperlinked?
Sure, yeah. Mediated meaning that I use different levels of mediation in the work. So video, live feed, recorded, actors, recorded sound, you know, affecting perspective, usually working with time and memory in the writing, and affecting the experience for the audience. Sometimes working with live musicians as well in the making of work. So the work sort of has different levels of mediation, and it's something that I'm always interested in my writing, and I encourage, you know, I like experimenting in that world as a writer. And then you know, hyperlink, you know, I call, you know, it's as we hyperlink in everyday life, where we're sort of reading an article and then we open up another article and then we open up another article, or go to a video or look at a pop-up or look at a picture or whatever. That idea is part of the way I kind of structure work, and sometimes it's very apparent in the writing. I sort of show my hand as a writer. And sometimes it's hidden, but actually it's the motor that affects the dramaturgy of what I build structurally as a playwright. So I'm constantly thinking about, like, I lay down a line of text, how does that open up into another idea, another portal? And that idea of opening portals is like really active in my playwriting.
So to go back to the question though, the pandemic, looking at things, I guess imagining, I mean, you've only seen this one play during the pandemic. Has any of your pre-pandemic pieces that you did see live, have they been done virtually? And,
Yeah, I have. Yeah, absolutely. My play Red Bike had a virtual production, a green screen production at Unicorn Theater in Kansas City. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful production. Also, the first time that show is done with one person. It's a play that I wrote as a solo. I know you guys are all about solo work. It's a play I wrote as a solo that never got done as a solo. It was done as like 2-actor, 3-actor, 4-actor, 5-actor play. And so finally, I get the solo version, and it happens in this green screen production at Unicorn Theater in Kansas City, beautifully directed by Sidoni Garrett. Stunning. Like, it's funny. Like, I remember, like, they called me up again. Everything was happening at the same time. Main Street Theater calls me up, and then Unicorns called me up, and then I had a show in Cincinnati that we were building, that we had been building for a while, and we knew we were going to do it digitally. And the Unicorn Theater people called me up, and they were like, "We're going to do this." And it's like, "Oh my God, Red Bike is happening as a solo. I can't believe it." It's like, "Yeah, we're going to figure this out and do it as green screen." It's like, great. They sent me the link. I'm watching the thing, and I was like, "Oh my God, I feel at home." I was so happy. I was like, there was something about like I love that play to pieces, and I've loved all the different versions that it's had so far, and more to come. But I have to say, there was something magical about being in the intimate space with the performer and the material, and there was something so direct about what was happening, and also incredibly inventive effects that were happening in the videography. And I was thrilled. I was like, "Oh, this is what I should have been doing all along." There was a part of me that was like, "I should have been doing this all along. What have I been waiting for?" I also had like a film premiere during the pandemic, so things have been like really active. But I've been thinking a lot about Red Bike specifically is a play that had a pre-pandemic life, and it's had a pandemic life. Theater of Love Story is a play that I premiered during the pandemic, that was initially conceived as an installation piece, that then we sort of reconfigured for the digital realm. And then there was another piece of mine called An Acorn that was done, that had a pre-pandemic life, that was done as a Zoom, Instagram, and download your own sound design production with a theater company in Toronto named Impel Theater. And then that had a tour, as it were, a digital tour to a theater company in the UK. So yeah, and that experience was interesting because that play, An Acorn, is it's like a physical theater piece. In my head, it is. And that's how it had been done mostly in the past. And suddenly to go back to the text, to just look at the language of it and how it was communicating verbally, very simply with actors, was so, I was like, "Oh, right, you can do this." There was something very moving about it. And so, yeah, so I found the, it's weird. Like, I shouldn't say like, "Yay, pandemic," because I'm not going to say that. But I will say that as an artist, I've found the digital theater very liberating, and the access liberating, and the international exchange that is possible extremely liberating. And I don't want that to go away,
So
because I get to play with people in San Francisco, and I get to play with people in New York, and all that stuff.
So I guess in the way, does it feel the same? It doesn't, it sounds like, but it sounds like it feels.
It
Which I think
feels.
has been the big question about the Zoom box. is can you feel the emotion? Do you still have the emotional experience? So Giovanni, Aaron G asks, will you continue to use this medium as a way to reach a broader audience?
Yeah, it's not going to be the only medium. Going forward, what we're looking forward to doing is partnering with other companies that do work in physical spaces to co-create productions that are more hybrid. We don't believe digital is going away. We also believe that there's still going to be room for Zoom-only productions, or other film type presentations. I think the only thing that will keep a theater going forward, even though a lot of films have been produced by theater companies, they're really in the live or present entertainment business. And I think what that means is that live is going to be the thing that defines theater. So it could be live cinema, right? Like the kind of stuff that we're thinking about. It could be live productions that are augmented, or their audiences are, global, in some cases because they're using digital. Also, there's an access issue that I think is quite profound here. I've spoken to a number of artistic directors locally about this, and what they're telling me is that this is an opportunity actually to provide access to people that can't go to theater because either they're too far away, or it's just too expensive, right? Theater is outrageously expensive. And digital is forcing theater companies to think about this. It's like if they're going to be serving audiences with, cheaper offerings that are digital, what does that mean for the entire, community? Should they also be reducing in person? Because if you put that at a premium, then, the divide starts to widen even further. So I'm an optimist here, but I think it's going to have a pretty salutary effect on the business of theater.
I agree. And I mean, I know in MarshStream, we want to totally continue and figure out how to do it. Also, Giovanni, before we end, and we're getting very close, can you just go through how it works on remote? Because I know you have a host. Her name is Philippa Kelly, and you have the play, and then you have a Q&A after. So just if you could just talk a little bit about the process of your 2 p.m. Saturday remote play by Caridad Svich, the Book of Magdalene.
That's right. That's right. And if you go, you don't have to go to church the next day. You have it from me. I'm working this out with the Vatican as we speak. Now, the way it works is we have this is a reading series that the Marsh, and Remote just launched officially with this play. And the partnership is bringing together one reading a month, where we have a cast that we assemble in advance, weeks, sometimes even months in advance. And what we do is we meet for 2 rehearsals only. One is just a reading, so it's not even a rehearsal. And the next, it's the day of. We meet in the morning. We meet for a nice, good block of time. After, hearing the first reading, we come back with some ideas, for them to experiment. And so it's kind of like a second reading stretched out over 4 or 5 hours, right? And then they go on, and they're generally great. That's the process. Yeah, we have a Q&A afterwards. Philippa, she's dramaturg for Remote. She's also dramaturg for Cal Shakes.
Well, so looking forward to this Saturday show with you all, with Caridad. You'll be there, right, Caridad?
I will indeed. You bet.
Yeah, late for her. Well, not that late.
Not that late for me.
It's only 2, like 5 o'clock.
No, it's
5 o'clock in New York. It's great.
Not even theater hour. No.
With a great cast, a great director, a great Marsh, and a great combination of this partnership, which I'm so excited about. So thank you both so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.
So it's 8:41.
I'll be
Time to go, but before we go, I want to make sure you all come this weekend. You come to all our shows. And the following week spotlight is going to be Brian Copeland's Not a Genuine Black Man. And he will be joining me next Thursday as well to talk about all things Brian Copeland. So thank you all so much. If you feel like tipping and supporting MarshStream and its artists, we so appreciate it. And see ya Saturday and next week. Bye, everyone.